I live in a small town with not so much light pollution at night. It's all good, but sometimes at night, and I forget to withdraw curtains, and the window can look like a gaping pitch-dark holes. Maybe it's just me, but it kind of gives me a bit of anxiety, making me feel exposed. After all, who could tell what there may be out hidden in the dark? The thin window glass may not be enough to keep you entirely safe. Today I collected 3 stories about unexpected things waiting outside your window at night. They are all very different. 2 would be considered more paranormal and 1 plain weird. And it kind of proves my point that there really could be anything right outside your window. Maybe for the maximum effect, you could draw your curtains and face the darkness outside before listening to today's stories. So, here are 3 allegedly true stories about what lied outside a window at night. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by host Anthony. It's from the first year in high school. I was staying up late to prepare for the upcoming finals. No, I wasn't a hard-working student. Actually, I was closer to delinquent for the first half of my middle school years. But the last word from my beloved grandpa before he passed turned me around. I barely managed to enter a decent high school and was now trying to keep up with other mates who seemed to me like studying robots. Call it inferior complex, but I didn't want to lay myself bare to other robots, so could concentrate only when I was in my own room by myself. So, the night before the first day of the finals, I was in my room. My older sister and brother were away in a big town, and at home were just my dad, who would quietly peep in every few hours to check if I didn't smoke, and my mom, who would bring in some midnight snacks to my desk. Past 1 in the morning, they both seemed to go to bed, and it was my turn to make a little cigarette break, a habit I couldn't shake off from my delinquent years. I sat on the window sill and lighted a cigarette. Right outside my window was a stretch of vineyard, and at the end of the field was a long derelict holiday cottage. As usual, seeing the dark shadow of the abandoned house was a bit spooky, more so than usual that night. Smoke got in my eyes, stinging them bad. I rubbed off the tears, which left my sight slightly blurry. And in that blurry vision, I saw somebody wandering up and down in front of the cottage, then stopped and faced straight to my direction. I could not see clearly, but I was sure it was a woman because the hair blowing in the wind was so long, the longest I've ever seen actually. But what I saw the next was still more unbelievable. The woman came up on the canopy of greenhouse structure that was covering the line of grapevines and walked over it towards my direction, flying her long hair. At first I thought, what a crazy woman, but soon realized a person, however light and nimble, wouldn't be able to walk over the flimsy structure of the half-greenhouse. I quickly moved away from the window. I couldn't dare to turn off the light the whole night, even when I went to bed. By the morning, I wasn't even any more sure if I really saw what I saw, or if I simply dreamt it. Maybe I wanted to believe it was a dream. Following evening, I was back in my room to prepare for the following day's tests. I didn't feel like a smoke that night. Guess I didn't dare to open the window. Anyway, into late hours, the doorbell went off.
Who could this be so late at night?
I heard Mom saying as she went to answer. I too went out to see who it could be. Who was it? I asked.
Nobody. I guess some naughty kid pranked. Well, it's late. I'm going to bed,
Mom said. Soon silence fell in the house. And it sounded like bare feet walking on slightly sticky vinyl floor covering. I was trying to focus on a particularly tricky math question, so the noise annoyed me. I went out to the living room, grumbling, "Oh, Mom, didn't you say you were going to bed?" But there was nobody in the living room, and the lights were off. I went back to my desk. This time, the footsteps got closer, and I heard my room door opening. I turned around, and indeed found the door opened ajar. Gosh, Mom is in the teasing mood again, I thought to myself, and I quietly went up to the door and burst open it to catch her by surprise. "Boo!" I shouted. It was loud enough to wake my parents, and both of them shooted out from their bedroom.
"What is it? Why are you shouting?"
Mom said. But if both of them were in their room, who was it that opened my door? I made some excuse to evade the situation, and parents went back to bed. Back in my room, why did I think of the image of the woman with the long hair? I wasn't in the mood to study anymore, but study I had to for the test following day. It must have been a draft. It's such a drafty place, this house. I thought to myself to rationalize the situation. But this time, the footstep was heard from right behind my back in my own room. My body seized up with a panic. I wanted to scream, but meager were all I could muster. I couldn't dare to look back, nor I wanted it. Then I thought of something I read on the internet before. If you fear a ghost is watching you when you study, try and throw a pen to your back. If you hear it dropping on the floor, that means nothing's behind you. If you don't, that means the ghost caught the pen. Silly. But I was desperate to prove there was nothing behind me, so threw a pen to my back. I heard the pen hitting the floor and rolling away. Phew. There was nothing, I thought, or so I wanted to believe. But when I bent down to pick up the pen again, between the legs of my chair, I saw feet, dirty with mud, with outgrown nails, and long black hairs were brushing over them. Poof! I just felt my brain switching off, and I think that should be when I fainted. The following is what my mom recounted. Mom happened to get up in the middle of the night and came out to fetch a glass of water, and just in time saw me trying to get out. She thought I was going out to have a smoke and slapped my back hard with, "I got you!" But when I turned around to her, my eyes were all white. Mom's scream woke Dad up, and he held on to me while Mom sprinkled salt all over me. Only then I collapsed down, and my parents kept aside of me all night long. I don't know where she got them from, but Mom got several talismans and put them here and there around the house, as well as one for my pillow and one for my wallet to carry with me. Fortunately, nothing more happened, and we also moved to a different place in subsequent years. But it remains the most terrifying experience I've had in my life to this day. Summer 3 years ago. I was 18. The rest of the family was away on a summer holiday, but I just stayed home behind. Guess I didn't find it so exciting to take holiday with my parents anymore. Anyway, I was determined to have a day of freedom alone at home, and went at playing computer game till late night. It was a hot muggy summer night, with nobody around to tell me to save electricity. I bumped up the air conditioning well past midnight. To be fair, I needed it because I could not open the window of my room due to the damaged insect net. But with my computer running all day long, even the air conditioner on max wasn't enough. In the end, I decided to open up the window, whatever mosquitoes and moths should come in. And when I did, I was stuck there, frozen for a while for the sight outside. My apartment is on the ground floor, and my window faced a low slope outside. Because of the location, noises from the outside was heard so clearly through the open window. And there, at the foot of the slope, was standing a woman, dressed in weird colorful hanbok, the traditional dress that I saw shamans wearing for a ritual. Her face was paper white. Her hair was all down messily. But what scared me the most was her eyes. I don't know if it were her makeup or what, but I had never seen so enormously large, piercing eyes. And the moment I carefully opened up the window, my eyes straight met those eyes. My heart dropped, and I could not move for a good few seconds that felt like a few years. When I finally could move again, I screamed and escaped the living room. I turned on all the lights and TV and shivered like I had never shivered, because I was convinced I had just seen a ghost for the first time in my life. But once I calmed down a bit, I wasn't so sure anymore. She looked too real and clear to fit the pre-existing perception of a ghost. Perhaps it was just a madwoman, or indeed just a shaman who happened to be passing by after her day's work. Even though I could not come up with any explanation as why she should be passing there at 2 o'clock in the morning. Then I remembered, in my panic, that I left the window wide open. As I said, my apartment was on the ground floor, and with no bars and not even an insect net, anybody could enter. My imagination that was triggered by the earlier shock ran wild. What if that weird woman should enter? What if I opened my door and find her in my room already, waiting for me? I could not dare to go back to my room. On the TV was a comedy show, blasting jokes and laughters, but all my attention was towards the closed door of my room. In my mind, the woman could burst out from it any moment. Then I heard weird noise of something falling and scattering over the floor. I turned down the TV volume and was soon convinced it was from my room. I could not stand it anymore. I thought of my uncle who lived in the same town and called him up. It was passing 4 in the morning, and the signal went for a long time without an answer. But thank God, finally his wife picked it up. I explained something seemed terribly wrong at home, that somebody might have broken in, and asked if Uncle could come over. When Uncle knocked on the door calling my name about half an hour later, I don't think I have never been more relieved. He headed to my room and opened up the door and took a step back with a short moan of shock. "Is that the woman you talked about?" Uncle said to me. I carefully peeped in behind his back, and indeed, the same weird woman was there, standing right outside my window. I was shocked, but at the same time felt relieved because, at least, she was a person. Uncle went up to the window and asked who she was and what she was doing, but the woman only glared back with those terrifying eyes. Uncle raised his voice. What the heck was she doing? What did she want? He would call police if she didn't piss off right away. The woman didn't even flinch for a good couple of minutes and said,
What a way to say thank you.
Then she turned around, jumped on a moped, and drove away with a loud noise, leaving both my uncle and me baffled. Only then I could look around my room. On the floor were scattered some white grains. Isn't this salt?" Uncle said. Indeed they were. The noise I heard earlier must have been from these. Uncle and I discussed what it was all about and what she might have been doing, but neither of us could come up with any clear answer. About 2 months passed, and I almost forgot about the traumatizing night. Mom, who came back from her school reunion, said to me,
One of my former schoolmates is a professional shaman, you know. So I talked to her about the night and the weird woman. And guess what the mate said? Were it not for her, you'd have been a dead man now.
According to Mom's friend's explanation, the world is full of wandering souls of all kinds. 95% of them would be benign, but the rest 5% could be malevolent and actively seek to harm total strangers either for fun or just for the sheer fury over the living. The weird woman must have been a shaman and seen such a malevolent spirit eyeing on me and performed the ritual to shoo it away. If that be really true, I'm sorry that we chased away that way. I'm a 27-year-old guy. Just graduated university and still live with my parents because I haven't found a job yet. One night I met friends for a drink and came back home late, past 2 in the morning. It was in the middle of the rainy season in early summer. Because the flat is on the ground floor, it was stuffily humid and hot even late at night. Despite of it all, I went to bed and fell asleep, I don't know for how long. Then my eyes popped open. I normally sleep like a dead man, so it was in itself unusual that I woke up in the middle of the night. But it wasn't even I woke up groggily or anything. I opened my eyes, feeling totally lucid and alert. I checked my phone and saw it was passing 4:30. I lied back down and just stared up the ceiling until I was seized by a sudden sense of chill that started from the top of my head down my spine. I sat up and instinctively looked back towards the window. The window in my room is big, almost floor length. Though it's on the ground floor, the window is facing the quiet backside of the ground. Apart from the entrance to the underground parking garage, there usually was hardly anybody passing by, so I didn't bother to draw curtains. just as that particular night. Right outside the window was a maple tree, and my heart dropped when I saw somebody standing there under the tree, looking in through the window. Because of the street lamps shining from the back of the tree, all I could see was the dark outline of the person. At first I thought of a possibility of me mistaking something else as a person, but the more I observed, the more certain it was. Rather small in stature, but he or she was definitely standing there, motionless, staring in. Then I noticed a tiny red light further behind. Under the lamp post was yet another person, a guy smoking a cigarette. He, too, was facing towards my window. It probably didn't take so long for me to have noticed all these, but it felt like a long time for me. First time I realized how an extreme panic could warp the sense of time. My first instinct was to call for my dad, who should be sleeping in his room. But I stopped myself because I wasn't sure how these creepy people outside should react should they detect the commotion. So I just kept staring at them while my mind was busy weighing what to do. And slowly, I noticed something was off with a person right outside the window. It didn't feel like it was a real person. The head was proportionally a bit too big for the stature, and the legs didn't look they were actually standing on their own. A doll? I thought. But it only made me feel more uncomfortable because it felt even more bizarre and unreal. I slowly stood up and walked backwards to the room door, never losing the sight of the window. Dad? Dad? My voice was low and dry, suppressed by my heightened emotion. Dad came only after I called for him a dozen times.
What's the fuss? So late?
Dad came up to me grumbling.
What's that?
Dad saw it too when he stood behind me and grabbed my shoulder. I'm ashamed to admit, but my knees went soft that moment. Dad quickly turned on the light in the room, and the light revealed that it was a doll hanging outside my window. It was big, over 1 meter tall at least, and very realistic, wearing a navy blue striped t-shirt and a matching trousers, with the big glassy eyes and the lips smiling creepily ear to ear like Joker from Batman. Somebody hung that thing with a rope to the maple tree. Dad ran out, and I followed him with a golf club in my hand. While Dad went to the maple tree to check on the doll, I ran towards the lamp post, hoping to confront the guy who smoked there. But there he wasn't anymore. I even checked between and under the cars parked around, but he was gone. Dad alerted the security of the flat, and a couple of staffs came around. They too seemed surprised with the bizarre situation. When the doll was taken down, I couldn't help myself but feeling more chill to find somebody had drawn an exaggerated wide smile over the doll's mouth with a red pen. Later we checked on the record of the surveillance camera. At 2:20, I was recorded coming back home. Fast forward at about 3:50, a man was captured, largely hidden under a big umbrella, but one could still see he was carrying a big bag. Then he was seen smoking 3 cigarettes one after another behind a parked car, and then came up to my window, hung up the doll, moved away to a parked car, and lighted another cigarette, and stood there for another hour, till the light came on in my room at 4:42. Then he sprinted, not even bothering to open his umbrella despite the continuously pouring rain. The last was him running away through the back gate. Police was called in, and they collected the doll and cigarette butts away. The surveillance record was deemed too unclear to provide any definitive clue to identify the guy, unfortunately. The flat management even cut down the maple tree in front of my window, but ever since, I don't dare to withdraw the curtain at all times. I can't stop wondering who that was and why he did such a thing. I'm not even a young, beautiful woman who might have attracted a pervert. I'm just an ordinary guy of 27, and I don't think I've done anything particular that might have made somebody to develop a grudge against me. I don't understand why such a thing should happen to me. Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I wonder if you ever felt the similar kind of anxiety about Uncover the Window at night. If you haven't so far, perhaps today's stories might have triggered the newfound anxiety. I'm personally not a big fan of modern obsession of huge windows anyway. I prefer the sense of containment and protection when inside my home. Should I want sun and fresh air, I would go out and take a walk. Or is it showing my shady character? Perhaps. If you enjoyed my work, please give it a like and a comment, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. If you're supporting me more directly, I also have a Buy Me a Coffee account. The link's in the description. Buy Me a Coffee supporters enjoy an early access to my new content. Thank you. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Sunday.